This is eCoffee with Experts, where marketers and founders share what's actually working in SEO, AI, and digital growth. Grab your coffee and fuel your mind as we chat with top minds about their wins, struggles, and lessons you won't find in a blog post. Brought to you by Digital Web Solutions, we bring real talk to help you grow your business, one episode at a time. Let's get started.
Josh Curcio, you are doing a lot of work helping manufacturers get leads, generate new prospects, particularly with HubSpot. Can you walk me through, what are you focused on as, in revenue operations day to day? What's your primary focus?
So on the revenue operations side with HubSpot, we're building systems and tech stacks that manufacturing companies can use. These are manufacturing companies that they're new to technology like this, familiar with ERP systems, familiar with all that kind of stuff that's been around a while, but modern CRMs and how that ties to marketing and sales efficiency is new to them. And that's what we build, as well as the marketing strategy and the assets, I guess, that go into HubSpot that would then deploy to help them get new leads.
Yeah, so many people know HubSpot just as a CRM, almost like a database where it's retroactive. Like if somebody comes in, then we can talk to them and, figure out follow-up sequences and everything. How are you using HubSpot as almost like a lead generation service? Or I guess a broader question is, what am I missing out if I'm using HubSpot just as a database that you have insight into how you can use it better?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And as you described, so many just use not only HubSpot, but any CRM as a spreadsheet. And honestly, so many of them still use spreadsheets. So
yeah,
as a spreadsheet. Some of the things that we think about are the components of who's ready to buy, where should our sales reps be spending their time? Do we have all of the information that paints the right picture and helps us engage with these prospects? Thinking about that as data enrichment or nurturing so that the reps aren't hunting around and only following up with that people that, as you mentioned, are there and asking for an RFQ. Those are easy. But what about the people that are really good fits that maybe are poking around the website or opening emails or engaging? How do we enable reps at manufacturing companies to either pick up the phone, still a method people need to be using, or prospect via the HubSpot tools, sequences, social media, however they need to be doing it, giving them that information and saying, when you have a prospect like this, here are the things, here are the steps that you should be taking and doing, and here are the playbooks we're going to be following. And we think about the right people at the right time. It's incorporating tools that would be helping to enrich data. That could be Breeze and HubSpot data enrichment and the buyer intent tools. So instead of waiting for that RFQ, it's, we've enriched the data. These contacts are in the system. The intent tools and signals are telling us they need something like this. Now is the right time for those reps to engage and start working through the playbooks. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. No, that's really helpful. And I feel like we're just scratching the surface on that. So what I heard is data enrichment and really picking up on buyer signals as a practical measure. Let's say I'm an agency owner and I'm not using HubSpot. I'm using some sort of different CRM that has a lead scoring mechanism. What sort of, one, are you scoring leads at Protocol 80? If you are, I would imagine that you're advising your clients to do the same. And what sort of weights do you give different activity in order to bump the prospecting score up?
Sure. Yes, we do lead scoring. I would advise any agency owner to incorporate that, and most CRMs have it nowadays. When we think about it for us, or when we think about it for our clients, we first think about our ICP, which is easy. Who are the people that we want to work with, and what are the enrichment signals that say they're a good fit? So for us, our agency, we primarily work with manufacturers in the United States, maybe Canada. Our sweet spot is between 30 million and 200 million in annual revenue. And they're somewhere in the supply chain. If we can identify those things, those tangible data pieces, that would be my first point in lead scoring. We've niched down, or niched down, however you prefer to say that.
Yeah.
I know that some agencies out there are still not in a specific vertical, which is fine. But I think when we think about being specific to a group of people, it's easier to have that ICP, have conversations, and honestly, when we lose deals as an agency that are maybe outside of our wheelhouse of manufacturing industrial, a lot of times it's like we went with an agency that specifies or that works specifically in healthcare or whatever. So that would be my number one is ICP. The other component of that is like persona, like the person on the other end that's doing that research or that's in our database, that's in our HubSpot. At a $30 million to $200 million manufacturing company, for example, it may be even the owner of that company that would be the people that we want to target, or executive level, director level. And so we would look at the person that we have in our database and apply a score to that, so we know that reps are reaching out and engaging with the right people. And we do the same for our clients, right?
Mm-hmm.
Understanding their ICP and then understanding the person that they need to engage with. Then the other elements are a little bit more intangible. What we do for ourselves and what we do for clients are creating content strategies that help to signify intent. So I guess let's use an example of one of our clients that I've talked to recently. They're a client that supplies a particular product that is really difficult for someone to switch providers. Like
Okay.
it's more of a hassle. They're not just going to go out and say, "Hey, I need someone new to do this," unless there's a problem, right? So risky for their clients to do that. But now, if we're trying to align reps with the right time, well, let's create content that may signify that they're thinking about switching suppliers. That could be something as simple as like 5 ways to change your XYZ supplier, or things to think about when changing suppliers. It's not a home run by any means, but the more of those types of pieces that you can tie together and pin back to a record in your CRM and then improve that lead score because they're viewing more types of that content, the more informed the reps are going to be. And honestly, if you're able to engage them, have a conversation, your conversation is going to be so much better, right? Because it's now personalized and speaking to the things that are on their mind at that time.
So when it comes to content strategy, we have the typical tofu, mofu, bofu, and this might be, awareness, and then like, yeah, I guess deeper diving, and then like consideration of like, okay, which one, which provider am I going to go with? What I'm hearing from you is it's more of like situational content, really understanding the pain points of the ICP, but more specifically, the person who is sitting in the chair as a persona, and then understanding that we may have multiple personas per ICP, and then creating different situational content for each of those personas. It sounds like that could get kind of complicated, I guess, if I'm not niched down as an agency and I just say I work with, manufacturing, but also e-com and everything, is there a way to kind of like simplify that? Or I guess, what are your thoughts?
I agree. It can become complicated. If you're not niched down, you're speaking very general.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, you can repurpose content for different industries. If you find that you work with 5 or 6 industries, taking that one piece of content that's more generalized and saying, all right, well, what are the specifics for this industry? And in thinking about how you may incorporate the specifics that way, you could do that. And, thinking about, I know we're not getting into the technical stuff, but using canonical tags to tie back to the appropriate primary article. We've been in that scenario as an agency where we produced a lot of content that we thought was really good, that was more generalized, but it didn't bring in the right persona at the ICP. It brought in all the wrong people. So no matter how hard we tried to engage from a sales perspective, just didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Which is where we found the more specific we could be, the more relevant we could be, and the more helpful we could be with our content. Same thing with our clients, the further or the more traction those content pieces are going to get. So I think that answers your question, but I guess in short, I agree, but it's so hard to rank and do anything if you are too general.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, EEAT is, that's kind of like the guideline, even for AI and LLMs. Tell me a little bit more, speaking of AI, what are some of the, I guess, AI features, whether in HubSpot or just in general, that are making the biggest impact for Protocol AD?
Efficiency. I think that everyone needs to be thinking about that as like, how can we expand our limited bandwidth of people and have them be able to do more things with the tools that they've got. So, that's something where we work with. Now, we do not advocate for ourselves or for our client like AI written content only.
Yeah.
We're big advocates of human in the loop and not AI generic content. Just
hmm
doesn't perform. So that's one area. The other area is thinking about AEO or a GEO, however you want to refer to that, and how are our prospects and leads using these tools, whether it be they search something on Google and Gemini is giving them results at the top, or whether they're using ChatGPT or Claude to find something. Like, how are they doing that research? How can we get in front of them? And as an agency, how can we make sure that our clients are still able to reap those benefits? Because whether we're talking about agencies and our customers, or whether we're talking about our customers and their customers, everyone's still going somewhere to research something, right?
Yeah.
And if it is AI, how can we make sure that we're still a part of that? When we think, you go back to that tofu, mofu, bofu note, the tofu content still needs to be produced. But if it's really, really high level, like, what is the need to click on any sort of resources in that AI tool? Like, I can get my answer, right?
Yeah.
I can be there, so that's good, but I don't need to click through. When we're thinking about, I want that click through as well, as opposed to just showing up at the top of Google and Gemini results, that's where we need to think about getting more specific and more of that bottom of funnel type of content. So it's like, now there's a reason for me to dig deeper and get really in the weeds here. So that's important for us as an agency to make sure that we're providing as a service for our clients, so they're not lost in the mix of like, maybe I'm showing in results, but what good is it if nobody's visiting the site or contact? Certainly we're incorporating AI in different ways. I have one on the RevOps side later on if you want to talk about that too, but
Yeah.
agency wide, those are the two biggest areas.
Yeah. Well, let's go right into it then. I mean, on the RevOps side, tell me, is it like a workflow that you're using or some sort of like research mechanism? Is it, I guess, is it workflow oriented or LLM based? I'll leave
A
it to you.
little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Again, I will say this probably multiple times. We work heavily in manufacturing, and we wanted to solve one of the things that was a problem for manufacturers on the RevOps side. It's like, we can't get our reps to log activities in the CRM. And when they do, the notes are sporadic, inconsistent. Outside reps aren't giving the inside reps what they need, vice versa. Like, how do
Yeah.
we solve for that, right? So it just so happens we're also Suprid partners. I don't know if you're familiar with Suprid.
I saw that you posted something on LinkedIn, but I didn't click through.
Yeah, we're Suprid partners, which is, I would say, a process adoption and enablement tool that sits on top of HubSpot that helps
Okay.
reps actually adopt the systems. And we're also Ask Elephant partners, which is an AI tool, but also a note taker. So back around inbound time, we took part in what Super Ask Elephant called the 10K pitch, where different agencies pitched solutions using these tools to say, who has the best solution, right? As a competition. I don't know how many people joined that competition, but ours was specific for field sales reps, field service reps that are out in their trucks doing their job from the road and using Ask Elephant to take the meeting notes. Ask Elephant was tied to HubSpot or CRM. It can also be tied to Salesforce, your Salesforce group, and automatically creating or updating records in the CRM based on what happened in that in-person meeting. If they talked about capital equipment, it created a deal, labeled it as capital equipment, identified the product they discussed. If it was consumables, it created a deal, talked about the consumables. But then on the inside, or the people from the desktop, Suprid would provide like battle cards or FAQs or things to diagnose issues right within the platform. So those inside people were just immediately fed the right information. So this kind of ties to AI because it's utilizing AI to do all of these things, extract the other stuff, but also all of these documents and resources that manufacturing companies already have to be able to serve it. So short story, we won the pitch with that solution and are now deploying that solution for our clients, being able to customize that and really say, now we have this thing that is like AI as a service, because we're building out the prompts, building out the scenarios, building out the documentation for them so that these organizations have that they could utilize and deploy for their people.
Yeah, I love that. So much information gets dropped just in the pass through. And, if we're communicating via the CRM, like there's a lot of opportunity that's still a lot of context so that when you're multi-threading different stakeholders in the company, it's great to, yeah. So I'm going to look into these Supered and Ask Elephant. I have this thing called Plod.
Oh,
I don't know
yeah,
if you
yeah.
can see it.
I'm familiar with Plod.
Yeah, so I love Plod. It has a desktop application as well. So I'm using that at conferences to, yeah, exactly. The main goal for me is one, obviously to pass context, but what is the purpose of passing more context into, to my other teammates? It's really to increase the deal velocity. Like I want sales velocity to increase. In manufacturing, you're dealing with 1 to 6+ months sales cycles. What are some things that you've seen to increase sales velocity, like bring deals in faster?
With that solution, or just generally speaking?
I guess it's in general. I would imagine that there's an overlap, but yeah, just in general.
I guess that ties to both sides of our business. When we think about RevOps or marketing, when we think about the RevOps side, it's providing the tools so reps can work efficiently, but also have that historic conversation, or not conversation, conversations, but intelligence to look back. If it is a 2-year sales cycle, if it is a 6-month sales cycle, like being able to have all of the information in one place where if you need to query that using an AI tool or using even HubSpot to find a specific conversation, it's all there. But when we think about increasing the velocity, sometimes things take long because customers process they can't fit anything faster. Like if I'm building an engine and my vendor supplies a different part, I can't just rebuild that engine in a completely different way tomorrow, right? I just have to wait and rebuild everything around that. But if we're thinking about things where it's like the more knowledgeable the client is, the faster they're going to move. Well, so many times companies just rely on their reps to be able to produce the right information and have the right conversations that aren't progressing deals fast enough. They may be a lot of conversations that are rapport building and historic, we've done this type of work together type of thing, which is fine, still needs to happen. But what about the content or the discussion pieces that should be in front of them that they can then pass along that helps provide that education and information to help progress that along? One of the things that we always think about is our customers tend to be, or our customers' customers, I guess, maybe we'll think about that, tend to be engineers.
Okay.
But is it a senior level engineer that's doing this research? Initial, like really early on research? Probably not. It's probably a junior level engineer. It's probably someone in procurement. It's probably someone maybe even that just has a buyer role that knows nothing about the technical components of it. However, we can write to that person, and we will, or produce marketing for that person so we can engage that or make that go further. But what about the stuff that the senior level engineer needs as well? Like it's going to hit a roadblock if you're not also producing that further content and context and education that needs to be had down the road so that it can continue to progress and progress further. We think about that on the agency side as well, right? Like we might talk about something that a marketing coordinator finds interesting, but just because a marketing coordinator at an organization finds it interesting doesn't mean that the CMO, the CEO, the director is going to find that helpful long term. Like if they want to deploy something, they want to do something, they want to hire an agency, what are the things that those other people need to see, not just the marketing coordinator? I guess to kind of tie that all together, we think about it from a marketing perspective and a content perspective, but then we also think about it from a CRM perspective to be able to say, well, here's the journey we're going on. Here's the logical next thing that you should discuss. Here's that playbook. Here's the piece of content to pass along. Here's the lead nurture workflows that are built to help kind of drive that along and make those sales work faster.
I love that. I guess what's coming through to me that I really want to ask about, you're talking about pieces of content, maybe it's a deck, maybe it's a article or a white paper that you've produced or that you found or, partnered with. Do you have these artifacts kind of segmented, or maybe it's too technical of a question? I guess I'm asking, like, where do these live and how are they organized? So myself as a rep can say, all right, this person is a CMO, they're an influencer, they're not the DM, however, and they're like, they're dealing with this situation back to the, tofu, mofu, bofu, and then contextually role scenario. How do I get the right piece of content or some sort of educational content that's not too far down the road?
Yeah.
If they're like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
where do those live? How do you organize those? Are they tags, et cetera?
So they're going to live in a variety of places. I think the most logical ones are going to be potentially email templates where it's just a link to the article and the sales rep doesn't have to write it themselves. They could be sequences in HubSpot, the automation, one-to-one that people are using to go out where, again, it's the right message and the right links to the conversation. It may need to be tweaked, but at least that resource itself is there. It could be HubSpot playbooks, where the playbook is showing the appropriate steps or things to talk about. Or I guess tying this back to Suprid, that's what Suprid can do as well. Like let's look at all of these attributes to the prospect, to the conversation, and trigger something that's like, this is happening. Here are the things that you absolutely need, whether it's early stage, whether it's you're onboarding a new client, all of that can live in a tool like Suprid. We don't have a system that we deploy for our clients where all of the logos live here, all of the files of this type live here. Certainly that's a possibility, not something we typically do for our clients though.
Yeah. I guess what you're saying is kind of like a Google Drive or something. You have
We will have a
categories
Google
and
Drive,
okay.
but that's probably the extent of when we think about file storage. The extent of it is a Google Drive where things live in the appropriate folder. There's not at this time a way to query the drive folder and say, in this scenario, give me this specific file from this particular folder. In the future, I think it will happen, but not right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're also looking at security issues, if you're connecting ChatGPT to the Google Drive, which you can do. I don't know how detailed it is. I've done it, one or two times myself. My question then goes to, you have these reps that are going out and you have outside, you have inside reps. They're communicating with each other through the CRM as well as, other channels. I guess the question is how much trust are you putting in them to make their own decisions, to create their own sequences, if you will, like follow up at the right times versus, let's call it a playbook or something that you or the C-suite has kind of come up with that said, this is the playbook, follow the rules. Is there like a balance?
Well, yeah, I do like that question. I think when it's too free for all, it just doesn't happen. Like there's got to be some parameters around there where here's our process. We want you to follow the process rules. But as a sales rep myself, can I have someone that I don't know without my tone of voice write a piece of content for me that I'm comfortable then using and deploying? I would say a little bit, but I think that there needs to be some level of trust with your reps to allow them to do things a certain way, right? Like when we think about how we would deploy this for our clients, we could write all the sequences for them. Will they go as far as like a high performing rep saying, here's what I would do and here's how I would say it? Now, make it consistent, make it more marketing friendly or more whatever. I think that's the better route. Like we're not in their day to day. We don't know how they talk. Even in a larger organization, a larger manufacturing organization that maybe is multi-office or working across the globe, having someone in the US office write the same content for someone in the EMEA or APAC office, it's just not going to go as far, right? So I think that there's got to be some level of making it your own. And I think if you can make it your own, but still follow the process, I think it's adopted a little bit easier. Do you do any sales yourself?
Yeah, definitely. And I've had like 5 years of, I guess, business development experience. Door to door was one of them. And also in tech.
It's weird though. Is it like taking someone else's script or taking someone else's message and then feeling comfortable deploying that for yourself? It feels weird.
It does. Especially when you're talking about inbound leads that come in and you have a sequence that, maybe it has your name, is coming from your email, and maybe they considered booking an appointment with you or scheduling a demo and it has your face on the thing, right? Or exactly. Or maybe you're in conversation via email and then they go to a booking page with a trigger link. And then the follow-up emails from that sequence are like definitely not in your tone of voice. You're right. It can be off-putting. And then it's like, do you, as the rep, join in and tag team the emails or whatever that's being sent out along with the automation, and then you send personal ones? Is that too much? I mean, someone who has kind of like an anxious personality disorder, I would imagine, like, can overthink this stuff very quickly.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think one of the problems that businesses have is they have no idea what's going out automatically
Mm.
anyways. Like,
Hmm.
I don't think that a lot of organizations explain or have enough, we'll go back to marketing and sales alignment, to even know
Hmm.
what nurture workflows are happening in the background, like whether they're getting any or not.
Yeah.
And I could see that there being some level of a rep that's like, well, I think they're getting this from our system, so I'm not going to do
Hmm.
anything. I'm just going to let the system do it. Or I don't want to overburden this person with all this communication. Whereas in a logical scenario, like once someone reaches a point in pipeline, maybe the background automation stops. But reps need to know that, needs to know
Hmm.
when something starts and when something stops so that they can have that full picture.
Talk to me more about the sales marketing alignment. When, these are very relevant scenarios that you're outlining. Like, when does someone get enrolled into a sequence? When does that sequence stop? Is it like a reply any, and then the rep takes over? Like, how, I guess, are these weekly meetings? Are these monthly meetings where sales and marketing get together? My question is, how do changes in the organization that affect both departments get rolled out? And then how do you test your reps for comprehension so that they understand the systems that you've implemented?
I think that can be a little complex, and I think it's probably going to happen in different ways for different organizations. I think expecting a sales team to meet with marketing consistently and be engaged all the time, I don't think it's going to go over well. Like,
I
I
agree.
think you can get some adoption early on. Well, they'll attend the first few,
Hmm.
but then it's like, well, I have this other thing. And then you get to the point where you just never attend. I think it needs to be built into documentation and processes. I'm going to go back to Suprid, for
Hmm.
example. If there's something that's relevant, a tool like that can surface it for the rep without them even knowing it. Or if there is a major change that's rolling out, that gives you the ability to even publish an update
Hmm.
CRM wide, whether it's a video of whatever or a link, or here's a list of all the new blog posts that went out this week.
Mm.
The first thing they log in and see on Monday morning is that pop up in their HubSpot that's like, here's the things you should pay attention to. The other
Mm.
mechanisms that I think are valuable are sales and marketing alignment dashboards, something where it's still in the view of the rep, but maybe it's something as simple as like, the content assets that went out this week, or the white papers or ebooks that are high performing for one rep. Like, this is a
Mm.
featured resource this month. Use this in conversations, at least know it exists. Getting reps on an internal email blast. Like, companies, marketing agencies, manufacturers, they're really good at saying, I want to create a marketing blast for our customers, but
Uh-huh.
they're not really good about saying, I want to create a marketing blast for our sales reps. Do
Hmm.
something like that. So then they're brought into like, here's all the things that are going on marketing wide. Here's all the things that maybe you should pay attention to industry specific
Hmm.
that maybe even aren't relevant to us, but they're industry things you should know.
Mm.
That type of thing can keep that alignment better without asking them to sit in a 1 hour meeting once a week or
Yeah.
once a month, because they're out there, they want to make money, right? They
Yeah.
don't want to
Oh,
sit
yeah.
in meetings.
Yeah. So it almost sounds like an internal newsletter would serve that purpose. I really like how, and from what it sounds like, SuperEd is the way to go, where, like you said, it sits on top of the CRM and then it can update changes and almost, put like an announcement on the home screen. That's a fascinating feature that I wish we would have. So after this conversation, I'm going to definitely look into the tool. Something that we did recently is I noticed that the organization is moving fast. Marketing is changing a lot of things that involve the CRM. Sales, I'm also driving the sales ops and the sales enablement side. So sales is also changing things like automations, when an opportunity gets triggered for this nurture sequence versus that one. And things were moving so fast and we couldn't really figure out how to communicate that without the meeting. So I set up a simple spreadsheet, and now we have an automation that runs every 24 hours. It looks for any changes, identifies the departments that it will affect, comprises or composes an email, and then sends it out to the relevant departments every 24 hours.
That's
And
great.
that has like, it's been awesome because now we're all in the loop and we avoid that, hour meeting. But I think the piece that I'm missing, my fiance lives at works at Amazon as a manager. And they do something similar, but the piece that we're missing is they test for comprehension for all their employees on the new changes. They literally have like a 2 or 3, answer quiz. So that, I guess that's what I was asking from you. Is there any sort of like feedback mechanism, feedback loop where you can A, get the input from the reps, but B, keep them updated?
Yeah, so there is. Again, that would be something in Suprid. So for example, when you're onboarded as a Suprid partner, you have to go through a kind of like a certification program that understands the system. So they have built that in.
Cool.
The other tools that I would look at would be an LMS. I know that when we thinking about manufacturing companies, not many of them have an LMS, but some level, even if it's not an incredibly sophisticated LMS, it's a great way to test knowledge and should be deployed when we're thinking of areas outside of just marketing and sales. I mean, we have an LMS here at Protocol 80. We're a fairly small organization of 25. If we can do it, these large organizations of 200 or 300 people should be able to have an LMS to test their teams on knowledge and comprehension.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the LMS, learning management system, for anyone who's not familiar with the term. As we wrap up here, Josh, tell me about onboarding new reps. You talked about being a partner with Supred. You are a HubSpot partner. I would imagine there's quite a bit of education that goes into that in order to get up to speed. What about coming into an organization like Protocol 80? What sort of checks are you looking for the new rep to tick off?
So you're asking about a rep at Protocol 80 as opposed to a rep that's adopting. See, that's a tough question for me. I was in the sales seat for a really long time by myself. We recently have brought in a new rep that is, similar to me, full whatever process. Lots of time on calls with me or whoever on sales calls, just shadowing, taking part and being able to speak up when they have something that they can add to the conversation over time. That's one element that we use. Another thing that's really important is having them sit in delivery team and client meetings, because you can't sell something you don't understand. So having them join meetings with the delivery team, whether they're content writers, whether they're strategists, whether they're people that are doing the technical SEO, like if they can hear that and understand how they're conveying, they're going to do so much better on sales calls than just saying, hey, here's what we do, learn it, now sell it, right? Have them get really involved in that process. Then the other thing that we've done that I think was helpful is having like mock type of sales calls or role play where we're talking about a HubSpot demo. All right, do a HubSpot demo with these 3 people on the team that don't really understand HubSpot all that well. Are you able to convey to them what HubSpot does? If so, you're ready to start doing your own demos with clients. And then again, just tying back to the LMS, we have LMS resources that they would go through too, but those are the more practical types of exercises that we take someone through.
Yeah, I really love that. Sitting in, especially during the onboarding period, like that first, 90 days or whatever, sitting in with the delivery and the content teams to understand how they do it on the back end, like see how the sausage is made, if you will. And then, man, yeah, that's super smart. I'm definitely going to implement that because we are looking to scale our biz dev team this year. So good stuff. Josh, thank you for being here. Where can we find out more about you and Protocol 80?
Yeah, Protocol 80. I guess our website's the best place, protocol80.com. That's 80, not AD.
Nice.
You can get a hold of me on LinkedIn or email joshc@protocol80.com. Happy to have a conversation with anyone, whether it's agency person or end user. Happy to chat.
Nice. I feel like there's so much more we didn't get into in terms of business development and revenue operations, but maybe we'll have another session. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.